Volunteers are not enough. The country constantly needs to replace the tens of thousands who've been killed or injured. Many more are just exhausted after 18 months fighting off Russia's full-scale invasion. Some men, though, don't want to fight. Thousands have left the country, sometimes after bribing officials, and others are finding ways of dodging recruitment officers who in turn have been accused of increasingly heavy-handed tactics. The system is very outdated, says Yehor. He watched his father suffer from mental health issues after fighting with the Soviet army in Afghanistan. It is why he doesn't want to fight. He asked that we don't use his real name to protect his identity. Typically, before Russia's invasion, men who didn't want to do military services would be offered an alternative, like working in farming or social services. The choice disappeared with the start of martial law last year, but Yehor thinks it should be still available. Each situation is individual, argues Yehor. The fact it is written in the Constitution that all made citizens must fight is, in my opinion, not in line with today's values. He was recently sent to a recruitment center after being stopped by police in Kyiv, who accused him of avoiding the draft. He was eventually allowed to go home after pleading that he had back problems, but next time he fears he won't be. There are exemptions from service, including having poor health, being a single parent, and caring for those vulnerable. But those convicted of draft dodging face lines or even up to 3 years in prison. Everyone should be allowed to contribute to this war if their situation are taken into account, says Yehor. I feel sorry for people who are on the front lines, yet I don't have a pacifist alternative. The way Kyiv conscripts men has been accused of being corrupt at its core. President Zelensky has sacked every regional head of recruitment in Ukraine after widespread allegations against officers in the system, including bribe-taking and intimidation. One military draft chief in Odessa was even accused recently of buying cars and property on Spain's southern coast, costing millions of dollars. The officer reportedly denies any knowledge of this. Defense officials have told BBC the alleged offenses are shameful and unacceptable. Mobilization is why most men under 60 can't leave Ukraine. Thousands often try to sneak out of the country, mostly across the Carpathian Mountains to Romania. For those who stay, mass groups chats help them avoid being drafted. Telegram threads give tip-offs on where drafting officers are patrolling. There are chats for different regions and citizens across the country, sometimes with more than 100,000 members each. The officers in these groups are known as olives because of the color of their uniforms. People they encounter are physically handed notices ordering them to register at a recruitment center, but there are reports of some being taken away on the spot without a chance to return home. Ukraine's defense ministry urges people to keep their details updated on a national database and says that if they are called up, they will be sent to a suitable posting. But there are claims of officers using harsh or intimidating tactics. There are also reports of conscripts finding themselves on the front line with just a month of training. The authorities do seem keen to restore confidence. It is okay to be afraid. It is the slogan of their latest information campaign. It is an attempt to draw parallels between childhood fears and the worries of today. It is an abandoned summer camp in Kyiv. Civilians are trained in resisting Russian soldiers in case of need. They patrol the paths before an instructor shouts, "Second group grenade." The men and women quickly fling themselves on the ground. Their rifles are not real, but there is a hope some participants will sign up for the real thing. Anton, a 22-year-old student, has already made up his mind. When the war started, I wasn't ready to get drafted, he tells me during a break from rolling in the grass. Now I have to get prepared to go to war in the future. Anton doesn't think it is good that people avoid a draft, but he understands why some people wouldn't want to fight. I ask him if he's afraid of the prospects. Of course, he replies, almost cutting me off. Everyone is scared, but if the situation gets any worse, there is no way I'll be sitting here in Kyiv. Ukraine has defied all expectations in its defense against Russia's full-scale invasion. Moscow's focus has been forced to shift from taking the whole country to trying to hang on to a fifth of it. But Ukraine is having to do its own recalibrations, not just with its own counteroffensive, which is bringing progress slower than many hoped, but also with how it motivates its citizens to fight. There is an undeniable need, but also an uncomfortable truth in the battlefield not being for everyone. Thank you for watching Kigali Daily News.